And we're live. Good evening, whiskey brothers and whiskey sisters, and welcome to episode 5 of the Canadian Whisky Journey's non-whisky review. I'm Dolph. I'll be your host tonight, and I'm joined by this guy right here, Blair Phillips, co-author to this book right there, The Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, the portable expert to over 200 distilleries and the spirits they make. And it's getting awfully close to Father's Day. That would be a very good gift, I do think. Blair and I are continuing our Canadian non-whisky journey with a review of this one right here, the Newfoundland Distilleries Seaweed Gin. Unique and very tasty, actually. Blair and I visited this distillery last year, online, anyways, last September, and we were with the co-owner and artist, Peter Wilkins, and he was a trooper. We had a fantastic time. The one thing I do remember him doing several times is showing us a picture of what it looked like outside. So I want to kind of bring that back up for people to see. This was beautiful. So outside, and those windows lead right into the distillery. So the stills are right there. As they're working, they can look outside. And if you're tasting, you're looking at the ocean, and beautiful. So I wish I was there. And he showed it off, and justly, so that's okay. And let's continue. I'm just going to throw up your article. So here's where you're going to go to find the article. And here's the article itself. And we talk about Vikings, and we talk about distilling, and we talk about the small berries in their juniper. And we're going to have you talk about that in a second. The one question I do want to bring up that I saw inside the article, and it piqued my interest. I saw that they use a barley spirit to produce to make the gin. And I'm wondering if that's a fairly common thing, Blair, because I think it's it'd be fairly expensive, would it not, to use barley as opposed to wheat, as opposed to, corn, anything.
Well, yeah, a lot of gins are made with like a weight-based spirit. That's distilled down to a neutral spirit. But if you look at a lot of the breweries on the West Coast, like the Phillips Brewery, for instance, and in Ontario, there's a few breweries that are now distilling. They use a lot of barley to make their spirit and make their beer. They make their spirit from it, and they distill it down into this neutral spirit for making gin. So it's not uncommon, but it's not at the same time super common. It just happens that in Newfoundland on the West Coast, there's a farmer that started growing barley, and Peter and William Carter kind of teamed up with them to get some of that crop for making spirits.
Okay, so it's just more convenient for them. I thought they were going for, I know they're distilling it to the most, I don't want to say flavorless, but they're going for the most neutral spirit possible, and I didn't think barley would be the natural choice.
No, and the barley that they're getting, like if you taste their vodka, it has it's pretty rugged. It's delicious, clean, delicate, all that stuff. But at the same time, there's a little bit of heft behind it, and I think that might be just maybe related. I'm guessing to the growing season in Newfoundland. It's shorter, so I assume they get a bit of a rugged barley, but it just that's the grain that grows where they are, and also they want to make.
The juniper as well. You said the short growing season had an effect on the juniper. It made them smaller but more potent, more powerful.
Yeah, you get these small, tiny berries that are very concentrated. And if you've ever grown savory, you know that it comes up pretty quickly in the spring. So in our climate, so Newfoundland, it grows really well. So they use savory and of course seaweed from the Grand Banks. And what they do is they take those three botanicals, put it in the gin basket. So the barley spirit shoots up through it, the vapors, and it comes off the still. They dilute it down to bottling strength, and then they macerate it in those 3 botanicals again. So it really gives a boost to the essential oils, the texture, and it gives that gorgeous straw yellow tone to the gin.
Yeah, it's lovely, and it's got a different mouthfeel as well. And I was guessing that was coming from the barley, and that's my guess. So you can tell me, they can tell me, someone can tell us if that's in fact the case. But let's relate this to the Vikings as well. Oh, go
Oh
ahead.
yeah. Well, I would guess that the texture is mostly coming from the essential oils, and not necessarily the spirit, because I'm not sure how much they cut the spirit in terms of distilling it into a neutral state. But the essential oils for sure would also give into that texture.
Okay.
But yeah, it's
That's
interesting because everyone thinks about the Europeans being the first people to come to Canada and make any kind of alcohol. And about 1,000 years ago, the Vikings landed in northern Newfoundland, and they were there basically to collect these little wild grapes that grew through New Brunswick, because wine was a luxury at the time. They couldn't get it, really couldn't get it in Greenland, so they came here. And it's quite interesting. They built a settlement in Newfoundland. When we visited there, it was quite interesting because the tour guide that was showing us around, when we were there, he was telling us that every now and again, you'd see icebergs in the middle of in July, Canada Day. You see icebergs out in the water. Every now and again, a polar bear would ride into town. And as you're driving up to Lanceau Meadow, there's everyone has their wood on the side of the road. That's where they stack it. And one of the guys from Ontario on this tour group was asking, like, what's stopping these people from stealing all your wood? And he goes, this.
Okay. That's how they make them on the rock. They're just they're short, itty bitty, but powerful, just like the juniper bird, man. This
guy was a tank house. It was quite entertaining. But the Vikings stuck around for 10 years. They cut out of town. They don't really know why the Vikings left, but my personal theory, uninformed of course, is that it's way too cold up there. Yeah.
Freezing.
And they would grow turf on top of their settlements, and it's freezing cold, and your spouse is nagging you to go mow the roof, right? So they would burn down the villages and split. Yeah.
I like hearing stories about the Vikings. Leif Erikson, I think he had a son called Dolph. I kind of relate to them somehow, so it's good. Let's do the nose. Let's delve into this Grand Banks gin. There's my, nothing. This Grand Gin, Grand Banks. My pun's just nothing on you guys.
I was caught napping. Sorry.
Oh, and lovely, and the brininess I have a hard time finding, and I did in the summer as well. I did on the palate, but I can on the nose, and just about everyone during that hour was able to pick something else on the nose that I just couldn't. Can you get brininess on the nose? I do on the palate at the end.
I do get brininess on the nose if you let it sit for a long time.
Okay.
Especially with a bit of a herbal note. But the nose to me is more about that luscious sweetness. And just a touch of that pine character with maybe I'm guessing maybe a touch of citrus or something like that.
And they actually had if you go on their line, you see what they have to see with it. It's like being in an ocean mix next to the herb garden and savory. Mm-hmm. They do a nice presentation. Their whole website, if you want to go to the website, it's newfoundlanddistillery.com. I think it just fits you right in there. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So on the palate.
What did you get?
See, that's where it starts to come in for me.
That's the only place I'm getting the saltiness is at the end. It's on the palate for a while, and it's not immediate. It develops, which is it's unique, but it goes well with it. And I think in your article you said because of the sweetness, the sweet and the salt balance each other out very well too.
I think so. I think this gin is a lot about there's a lot of complexity and at the same time there's a simplicity to it. But at the same time, there's like every single style of flavor is coming and hitting your palate. So you have like a little bit of a brightness. You have the brininess. You have the sweetness. There's a little bit of a bitter tone. It really comes across as like a really well composed, Michelin star restaurant dinner kind of thing.
just like the other co-owner. And for me, you talk about the brightness. For me, it's the brightness and it's the mouthfeel that complement each other really well. It seems divergent, but it works really well together.
Yeah.
Quick information: 750 mils, 40%, available for about $40, and it's in Newfoundland, Labrador, Nova Scotia, Quebec, Ontario, and Alberta. But you can get it online, shipped anywhere, because there's a different freight if it's going Western Canada or if it's going the north. So go to their site, and I think there was 9 products that are available right now. This is one of them, and the other one was the gunpowder and
rose gin, yeah, or a rum. Yeah,
and yeah, we that was the one we loved the most. I think we talked about it quite a bit last time. Last thoughts?
Well, there's the original 4 briny maritime gins in Canada. This is one of them. I think it's one of my favorite gins on the market right now. Those 4 gins have expanded a little bit into Quebec. There's a bunch of saline gins now, but this is one of the originals with Shefford and a couple other places. It's in Saint Laurent.
Saint Laurent does one, I think. Yep.
Yeah, and still fired in Nova Scotia is the other.
Perfect. Well, where there's the gin. I liked it. I'll recommend it. A whiskey drinker that enjoys it, and I think it's the mouthfeel that brought me into it as my favorite part. So thank you all, everybody. Have a fantastic night. Thank you, Blair, for joining me tonight. This was fun. And thanks for the education. I'll need that throughout. Every time we talk about gin or something other than whiskey, I need you. We're later. Good night.
Cheers.
Guys. Cheers.